Hey guys, welcome to this fifth installment of this Godot 2D platformer tutorial series. So in this video, we're going to be looking at how we can add some sound to our game, as well as allow for scoring for our player when they pick up coins, as well as creating UI elements to display that score. And then from there, we're going to create a game manager, which is going to allow us to keep track of scores and our player itself. So let's just quickly recap on where we left off and what we are going to be starting with in order to carry on with this tutorial series. So if I hit play here, you'll see that we had in our last tutorial, we ended off with a player which is animated, can move around, pick up a coin, and collides with platforms and the floor. So let's jump in and let's start off with something really basic here. Let's start off with our UI element. So in order to do that, we want to create a new scene again, and we're going to create a custom node. And the very first node we want to add is this 9-patch rect. So we're going to create that, and then the first thing we want to do here is just give it a little bit of a texture. So in order to do that, go over here to texture and create a new image texture. So then very simply what we want to do, so I'm going to use this platform PNG. I just wanted to use the basic elements we already have to create our UI, just because one, it fits in with the theme of the game, and also it's just going to speed up our process. We don't have to go and create new elements in order to do this. However, with your project, you can do whatever you like. You can go and create some elements if need be. So what I'm going to do first of all is just resize this up so that we've got something a little bit nicer to work with. Make sure to keep it on that 0, 0 axis. And then the next thing I want to do is just rename this to coin UI. Right, great. So the next thing we want to do is, or actually let's rather name this coin counter. It will just make a little bit more sense, I think. And then let's create a child node. So we're going to create a label first of all. So this is going to contain our actual text. So I'm going to move this around a bit just to place it correctly. I'm going to add initial text. So let's say the coin count is 10 initially. And then what we want to do is just maybe resize this ever so slightly to just be a little bit bigger. And then we can go and move that into place. All right. So the next thing I want to do, just to signify that this is actually coins, is I'm going to create another UI element called a let's see, I think it is a texture rect. Yes, that's right, texture rect. And then again, we're going to create a texture, and it's a new image texture over here again. And now we want to bring in our coin. So drop that in there. We now need to just resize this as well so that it makes sense. So let's go over here. See if we can resize with this tool. No, let's use this tool instead. So I'm going to bring this down so that it will fit our UI. Alright, so maybe a little bit like this. I think that's fine for now. Let's just move that into place. I'll just drop it over here just so that we know that this UI element is actually for coins. Alright, great. So now what we want to do is just save this, and I'm going to call it ui.tscn. So now back in our game scene, we can now bring our UI TSCN into our game, and you'll see it on screen. Great. So we now have a scoring system, or a basic UI for a scoring system. Let's play this, see how it looks. So we are going to, at the end of this video, adjust this element a little bit because it is a bit out of proportion. But bear with me, we'll get to that. Let's just carry on with now creating the sounds for our game. So when we have a jump, and when we've got a coin pickup, that we actually have a sound that plays. So first thing we want to do is let's just start off with a basic jump sound just to get something going. So I'm going to head over to my player TSCN, and here I want to add something called a audio stream player 2D. So we're going to create that, and I'm going to rename this to jump sound. And the next thing we want to do is bring in our jump sound. So I created this sounds with SFXR, which is a free app which allows you to generate some sounds for all sorts of basic 2D games. So I suggest that you get that. I'll leave it a link in the description so that you can actually go and download that and use it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my jump sound node over here, and you'll see there's a stream which is empty. I'm going to drop my jump wave into that slot. So that will allow us to now be able to play sounds, but let's start off by just bringing this in. So how we're going to do that is we're going to look at our player script, and we're going to modify our player script to play this sound when we jump. So very simple. In order to do that, let's just find the portion where we actually do the jump. So over here, we do the jump. We're going to use a $ to find our node, and we're going to go to jump sound, and we're going to just call the play method. So let's test this out, see how it works. Right, so now I'm going to hit, so you can hear that it makes a sound for the jump. Okay, great. So now what we can do is we can now move on to the next portion, and that is to create a sound when the coin is picked up. So in order to do this, we need to do a little bit of extra work, is to get our player connected to our UI. So what we're going to do is we're just going to first of all create a new method for our player, which is going to keep track of our score. So I'm going to create a var called score, and that's going to be equal to 0 initially. We're going to create a func called increase score, and that is just basically going to increment our score by 1. So we're going to say score equals score plus 1, and then we are going to look at playing a sound at some stage, and then that's going to trigger our coin pickup. So what we'll do is in our player, you can do this very differently if you like, but to keep this simple, I'm going to add a child node over here, the audio stream player 2D again. I'm going to rename this to coin sound, and then again I'm going to drop my coin pickup into that empty slot. Alright, great. So now back into our script, what we'll do is we'll now just play our sound when we increase the score. So as I said, you can trigger this at different places in your game or code, but I'm going to do it here to keep it simple. And then when we increase the score will increase by 1. We'll then basically play our coin sound that it's been picked up, and then we'll actually hear when the coin has been picked up by the player. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to just create kind of a bridge between our UI scene and our game and our player. So in order to do that, we need to have what is called a game manager. So we'll create a script which we can include globally, which will basically execute when our game starts up. So for that, I'm going to just go over to scripts, and I'm going to create a new script, and it's going to be GD script again, and I'm going to call it game manager. Right, create that. And then in the game manager, what we'll do is we'll have just a few variables just to keep track of some stuff. So it will still extend node, that's fine. We'll have a variable called player, and we'll have a variable called UI. So this will just keep track of our UI and our player, and then what we need to do is include the script globally. So we go to project settings, and then on auto load we need to go to add, or we need to go to open, and then we need to go to script, game manager, and then click on add. So this will then automatically bring in the script when our game executes. Right, so now what we need to do with this is we need to, when our player gets initialized, we need to basically set our player to the game manager player so that we have track of it globally. So that's very easy to do. All you need to do here is in the ready function, you need to say game manager. So you'll see it's now available, and player is equals self. So when this player gets created, we'll assign it to the game manager player, and that means we'll have global control over this player in other scripts as well. So the next thing we need to do is we want to look at setting up some type of coin UI script, which is going to be able to handle any coin coin functions or whatever we need to do, but it's going to be very basic to make this tutorial series work. It can get a lot more complicated if you carry on with it, but to start off, what I'm going to do is in scripts, I'm just going to create a new script called coin UI. So again, another GD script, coin UI, and now we need to go and attach this to our UI elements. So how we're going to do that is we're going to go over to our coin counter. So we go back into our UI and coin counter, and we're going to assign that script over here. So load that up to coin UI, and that's going to then be able to, well, control our UI from there. So I just want to make sure this label, that's fine, okay, because the naming is important when we one day want to update our value over here. So let's now head on back into our coin UI GD script, and simply here what we want to do is we just want to assign it to our game manager so that we've got a way of controlling it globally. So we can get rid of all these comments here just to clean it up. And we're going to extend node, and instead of pass, we're going to assign our game manager, and it's going to be our UI, and it's going to be equal to self. So when we do create this coin counter, it's going to be assigned to the game manager's UI, and then we can use this UI in other parts of our scripts to do updates, etc. So what we want to do now is we need to go back into our coin pickup script, because instead of just deleting our coin, we want to now actually increase our score. So for that, we'll call our game manager again. And now since we've got the player, and the player has a property called score and a method called increase score, we can just simply call that here when we actually touch a coin. So that'll increment our score variable, which we've basically got in here. So it's going to be this one. And then we can go and update our UI using this score value. So what we're going to do now is just a very simple thing to just get our score going. So we'll go back into just doing some little bit of operations so that we can update our UI. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at our UI, and then we want to do a loop through it so that we can find our actual label, and then we can update our label. So how we'll do that is quite simple really. It's just going to take a little bit of understanding of loops. So what we'll do is we'll do a for loop, a node in our game manager, and we're going to take our UI, which is now that coin counter which we've got, and then we're just simply going to get all the children. So what this will do is it will go into this portion of the tree. It will then loop through all the elements that are children of this coin counter and then do something with that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to say if the node is a label. So because we are only interested in this label because that is our score value. So if it is a label, then we're going to go and manipulate that. So we're going to take the node and we're going to set the text. And what we need to do is, since it does take a string, we need to cast our score, which is basically an integer value, to a string value. So we'll pass in score here and close that off. So now what happens is when we do a coin pickup, you'll see that we increase the score. When we create our coin initially, or our coin UI, we're going to set it to itself, or the object that gets created when the game starts. Our game manager is just going to hold the details of our player and our UI. So this is like a global scope way of getting all our components of our game into one place, which is then globally available to everything. And then in our player, script, we're going to have an increase score method and a score variable, which is going to keep score of how many coins we have picked up. And then simply we loop through our UI, find our label with this loop, and then we set the text to what it needs to be. So let's run this, see if it works. So initially we've got 10, and we can hear that the coin pickup sound is played, and that also our score has updated to 1. Got our jump. So just to now basically finish off this tutorial, I'm just going to make these items a little bit more realistic. They're a bit too big. So let's just fix that up. But at this point, you've got a functional game which has got a scoring system, it's got coin pickups, etc. But what we can do now is we can expand on this and create some more coins, and also just fix up how this looks. So let's start off with the platforms. Let's just resize them so that they make more sense. I'm not sure if this is going to help the resize, but let's try this. If we resize them in here, let's just make sure we resize the entire platform. Let's give this a go. Save that out. Let's see if that's updated. It seems to have. So what we want to now do to just make this more realistic is just move these around. They make more sense. And bring those to a different spot, and then we also want to just modify our coin to be a little bit smaller because it doesn't make that much sense at the moment. So global coin over there is what you want. Bring this down. I think that's probably going to work a little bit better. Let's look at our game. Yes, it makes more sense. So let's duplicate our coin out a few times. So duplicate this coin, duplicate it again. So we've got a few coins to play with. Move that into, what did I do now? Oh, it's the incorrect thing that it's actually the coin UI that I just duplicated. Or this should actually be the root on the root. And in front of us. Okay, great, that's going to fix it. And then we're going to move this into the top corner, and then now we can duplicate our coins. Okay, I think that's enough. Let's move them around, put them in some nice spots. For example, on some platforms. Right. Now our player is obviously way too big for the scene, so let's go and modify our player as well. So that's a great thing about putting all your objects into different scenes, is that you can modify them individually and then make them fit your scene. Let's bring this down as well. So resize our player. Not too small. Right, should work. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so then maybe resize our player here. That didn't seem to update. Maybe bring our player down and then do a resize. And then what we want to just maybe do is just modify our jump velocity so that it makes more sense. Let's just have a look at how it looks now. Well, actually the jump doesn't look too bad. We can modify that a little bit more if we want. So that works. Got a bit of a fly going here, but you can easily stop that with creating some additional scripting, which will then block your player from jumping if it's touching the ground. So that's a very simple 2-line bit of script that you can add. But guys, anyway, this is the end of this series. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to maybe add to this series if you feel that it is lacking. So I hope you've liked this series. I hope you can then like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. There is going to be a lot more tutorials coming for Godot and Unity as well. I'm going to be looking at a Flappy Bird series where we're going to build a basic Flappy Bird. We're going to be building a basic RPG as well in Godot and Unity. I'm going to be basically looking at both game engines to be doing this. So guys, I hope it's been great. I hope you've liked it. So please do subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next tutorial series. Cheers.